Well, today we are tackling a conversation that maybe many men aren't prepared for, and this is midlife and menopause. And very often we find ourselves struggling, especially if we're in a relationship. You know, men are going through their changes, women are going through their change, and it can be a very challenging time when it comes to your relationship because there doesn't seem to be any language around what is actually happening. So whether it's, it's a change of direction or purpose, this sort of hormonal horror show that we're experiencing, we're just not understanding it. And what it comes down to is probably communication, building a better connection and being able to kind of not feel so isolated, not feel so alone. Well, to help us navigate this today, I'm joined by an award-winning health, fitness and lifestyle journalist. He's also a best-selling author of the book Burning Up, Frozen Out, What Every Man Needs to Know About Menopause. And he's on a mission to help us understand complex health science and turn it into sort of clear, practical advice to help us navigate midlife and move forward stronger. Welcome to the show, Joe Warner.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I think there's an awful lot of ground we can cover. I'm really excited to get stuck in.
Well, it's so unusual to have someone like yourself you've written this book that's doing extremely well. And it's sort of helping men understand what women are navigating. We don't hear this. It's all about sort of women helping each other. And generally, we're sort of generalizing about menopause. And it is a hot topic. I've spoken about menopause in different sort of scenarios over the last couple of years. So I'm really interested to take your perspective. But first of all, what is it about made you decide to sort of write this book and sort of make it your mission to help men understand what women are going through? Because men are going through their hormonal changes as well. And I would like to understand what sort of sparked this idea and got you on this sort of mission.
Well, I've been a men's health and fitness journalist for 15 years. I was the editor of Men's Fitness magazine, so I thought I knew an awful lot about health and well-being. And I did, but only if you're a man. I suddenly realized very, very quickly that women were completely different creatures when it comes to hormones primarily. And I say that and I smile about it, but I'm really embarrassed that I didn't know a lot of this stuff. But I think a lot of men don't. I think we're really, there's not much education, there's not much awareness around what women go through in life generally, I think. But for me, it was prompted during a scan in pregnancy. My partner had her 12-week scan and a cyst was discovered on one of her ovaries, which was quite large, but didn't have any really real issues with the pregnancy apart from we just had to keep an extra close eye on it. And then about 6 months after our son was born, Lucy had to go in and had the cyst removed, which had grown to about 17 centimeters. So it was a pretty big cyst. And the surgeon was brilliant. She explained everything, what she was going to go and try and do. But she did say there is a chance that the ovaries might have to come out as well. And I sort of sat there and I had a vague idea of what an ovary was because I'd, through the pregnancy process.
Wow.
But I didn't really understand what would have happened if her ovaries had come out. So I asked the question. I'm a journalist. That's my job. I ask questions. What does that mean? And I said, crash menopause. And again, I sort of nodded, but had absolutely no idea of what that was really or what it meant. So I went away and did some research. Very luckily, the surgery was a complete success and the ovaries were untouched. But it was also where we'd sort of kicked the can down the road. This was something that had sort of come onto my radar sooner than it otherwise would have done. But in the course of going out there and trying to find out a little bit of information about if a crash menopause did happen, what could I do? While there's brilliant books out there for women about perimenopause and menopause and explaining the science and everything else that's going on, I couldn't find anything that spoke to me as a male partner in terms of not just what I could do to make it better, but actually what I could do to stop making things worse. Yeah. And then I started having conversations with men who'd gone through it, with women who were going through it. And it very quickly dawned on me, Julia, that there is an absolutely huge education gap here. Men have no idea what's going on. Women often have no idea what's going on as well. I think although we're moving towards a more open, communicative society where we all are talking about these things, once you look at the divorce statistics around middle age and you look at relationships breaking down, I'm not saying it's entirely down to perimenopause, but it must be a factor. And there is some research that suggests it is. I think 73% of women who get divorced in midlife cite menopause as one of the factors at least. And the way I kind of describe it in the book is perimenopause arrives at an incredibly mad time in women's lives, right, and men's lives, because you've probably got young or hormonal kids, you've got aging parents who are leaning on you more, you're probably at your peak professionally in terms of responsibility and stress, you've got money worries, and then you throw this hormonal maelstrom into the mix, and it's no wonder that people go off track. And the way I explain it, women are suddenly thrust into the middle of a high-stakes game and no one explains the rules. and their male partners are thrust into a high stakes game, but they don't even know they're playing. And I think it's this mismatch, this misunderstanding is where we see so many relationship problems sort of burst into life in midlife.
I mean, do you think it is because maybe there's already underlying issues that maybe you're not paying attention to in the relationship? And then obviously all these hormonal changes, I mean, if you think with women, you're dealing with anxiety anyway. This is something that crops up. You don't know why you're anxious or worried, but you are. Your lack of sleep. And these all affect your mood, your behaviors. You may be more prone to outbursts of anger and frustration. You get irritable with everyone. You feel uncomfortable. You're not feeling confident in yourself because you're gaining weight and you just don't feel right. Even though you may know, for those, I mean, I certainly knew when I was starting my perimenopause and menopause, I was very aware of all of that. But in some cases, is it, like you say, can't just be the symptoms. There has to be potentially something underlying, some underlying issue, because many people have relationship issues and they don't really discuss it until someone decides they're leaving the relationship and then they're surprised. And so I do wonder if that plays a part, and it comes back to, I guess, what we want to get into a little bit as well is about this ability to talk about stuff.
Absolutely. I think, it's very rare that a midlife relationship ends after one argument. It's death by 1,000 cuts typically, right? So I think there's a number of things to unpack there. I think when perimenopause does arrive, I think you can't paper over the cracks anymore. The way I describe it is, for a lot of women, and this is how women describe it to me, their bullshit barrier's gone. So the stuff, when men say to me, I don't know what's got into her, she's suddenly snapping. I'm not doing anything different. Yeah, but her tolerance for putting up with you doing that is just gone, because there's too much for her. It's that complete overwhelm. She's not overreacting. She's just completely overwhelmed. So I think that's probably an element, is just the tolerance for putting up with things, for papering over the cracks is gone, because life's hard. I think also for couples, the simple disconnect between her experience and what he is seeing is sometimes insurmountable for couples until they understand, especially the man, until he understands what's going on. Because the way it was explained to me, Julia, is some of the symptoms, men are never, ever going to experience them. So it's very, very hard, unless you are unbelievably empathetic, to put your feet in those shoes. So men often downplay, they're dismissive. It can't be that bad. Pull yourself together. Make a joke of the brain fog, forgetting the keys, putting your purse in the microwave. Whatever one of these things that women have told me that they've done. And that's incredibly jarring for a lot of women when they're trying to be open, they're trying to explain how they feel, and to be sort of shut down or dismissed. When I think the men sometimes feel like they're trying to help. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It's meant as reassurance, but it's not. It pushes someone away. So I think all of these things are at play. And what I say to men now is, you can't experience some of these symptoms. Thank God. You're so lucky that you don't have to go through this, first and foremost. But the way I explain it is, some women said to me, perimenopause for them, it was almost like they were grieving. They were grieving for their younger self, for their fertility, for all of the things they did and didn't do that are now gone. And I think in the West, especially in Western societies, there's still that negativity around menopause. It's the start of decline. It's the end of your use, as one woman described it to me. So there's all these things going up. I think from a male point of view, imagine someone you love is grieving for something, and you might not be able to understand it because you didn't have that relationship or whatever. But when she describes a symptom or says something that's going on, try and get into that mindset, because you're not going to experience it, but you might then have a greater empathy of what she's going through. Because I think these relationships there is a lot of strain in midlife relationships anyway, but I fundamentally think the lack of communication, the lack of honesty and humor in relationships when things get hard is what causes those cracks to become chasms.
I mean, I want to just pop back, because you said something there that was really interesting. And it was kind of this fact that women sort of can be grieving like the loss of their youth. You said about its usefulness. And I do wonder, because I certainly never had that feeling. I just feel, maybe I'm one of the fortunate ones. I just felt like I have to go through this. I knew it was coming. I knew when my mum was going through hers, and I was fortunate to have that. And many women maybe haven't had that conversation with their mother or grandmother or whoever the female matriarch in their family. But is this sort of also a mindset issue? It's kind of this feeling like we feel, because we've lost our youth, with our ability to have children, or we're losing our looks, or all these things, that we've been conditioned, whether it's conditioned within our family or whether it's society as a whole, that when a woman can't do these things, she's not pretty enough, she's not young enough, she's not fertile enough, that she is of no use, because that's nonsense. I know it's nonsense. And most women, you get to midlife, it's changing, 100% it's changing. but you have your purpose becomes different, and it can actually become more useful.
I think that there's absolutely huge parallels there between midlife for women and men as well. And I touch upon this in the book, how, men, the midlife crisis, a lot of people often think of that being a male thing, but actually it's a lot of women are going through the midlife crisis because of perimenopause. But I think a lot of men in midlife, for the same non-hormonal reasons as women I outlined, kids, parents, mortgage worries, all of these things, maybe your life hasn't planned out the way you thought it would. And you can get to sort of your 40s and 50s and sort of wonder, what am I doing with my life? And I think this is where couples either come together or fall apart, because we have to remember we're changing all the time. We're not the same people we were when we got together. And I think that change is scary for a lot of people. You don't want to change because you want it to stay how it was, because that's when you got together and that's when everything was good. But of course, we're not living in a vacuum. We're changing all the time. And I'm really big in the book about explaining some exercises you can do as a couple that just sort of refresh your memory of each other, your likes, your dislikes, what makes you tick, what's changed. Because you need to know if something you're doing is something your partner loves or something she loathes, vice versa. That communication can ease an awful lot of the friction that builds up day to day in midlife. And it's interesting you mentioned, we're talking about that sort of terminal winter vibe that you get in the West around menopause, where if you go to China or go to Japan, it's seen completely differently. It's called the second spring. It's a chance for reevaluation of your life, refocusing what's important. And I think in the book, I talk about how men can do that in midlife. I say, it's that the famous example from David Brooks of the second mountain, young men that climb that first mountain, status, money, power, respect, all these things society sort of teaches us to chase. But one day you hit a certain age and those things stop giving back anymore. You can keep chasing the power, keep chasing the money, but you feel empty. And that's where I think men end up in that midlife valley of everything you're chasing isn't rewarding anymore. And David Brooks speaks about finding your second mountain. What is your purpose? What do you want to be remembered by? Your CV or your eulogy? What can you give back? You spend the first half of your life taking, what can you give back? And the men I've spoken to have found that really useful for kind of reframing where they are and what they want to do and how they want to be remembered. And I think it's really useful, as you say rightly, for women to do the same. This is not the end. We are living longer. You might have half of your life in a postmenopausal condition, right? So it's about getting through this as quickly and as painlessly as possible, whilst maintaining your relationship with your partner and your friends and everyone else. Because the second half of your life can be the most rewarding, because you've had to go through this difficult phase that's made you evaluate what's important to you emotionally, physically, sexually, all these things. Without that reevaluation, we just keep on drifting, doing the same things and getting less and less back.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to touch on a point you said about how men deal with it as well, because it's kind of like hoping this was going to come full circle in what we're talking about at this moment. Is that you say about men, when they sort of try to make light of these things, and is it almost like, well, this is how men generally with their friends deal with problems? They, let's have fun and take you out of yourself. But also, like you say, it's your kind of, you can see that change in your partner and you want to grasp onto the person that you first got to know and fell in love with, and you want to maintain that. And as a man, you're trying to also sort of keep this lighthearted. You were fun, lighthearted, and now you're making everything seem like chaos and stressful and serious. And is that part of what's going on as well, which is where the miscommunication happens? You're not willing, as a man perhaps, to acknowledge or pay attention to the fact that they're changing, and what is it, and ask those questions. What is it that's changing? What is it I need to now understand?
Yeah, I think men typically, in my experience of researching the book, fall into one of three categories when perimenopause, I was going to say knocks the door down, but blows open the windows, takes the roof off your house. Number one is, and again, I really want to be conscious that it's not all men, but these are just the patterns that I typically see, right? So you've got number one, the ostrich, and that shouldn't need too much explanation, head in the sand, hoping it blows over, just trying to ignore everything, which of course never ever works. The second characteristic is the comedian, possibly trying to be helpful, makes jokes, makes light of things, trying to ease the tension, ultimately comes across as disinterested, dismissive, not caring, and can cause problems. And the third, which I think the most well-intentioned men fall into, is this fix-it mindset, right? The fixer, Bob the Builder. If something's broken, I'm your man. Absolutely brilliant if your drain pipe's falling off your building. Not so great if your partner's going through perimenopause, which might last a decade, right? Yeah. Also, just simply treating her as a problem to be fixed, makes her feel like a problem, makes her feel like there's something wrong with her. So I think this is often where we see the first big crack in a relationship. It's how the man responds to the new normal, right? It's things have changed. How are you going to adapt to that? And I think, like I said, even the most well-intentioned man goes, right, okay, well, I don't really know what's going on, but I can roll my sleeves up. And if you're stressed about this, I've got some advice here, or I've got a solution here, or you just need to do that, or have you tried this? And it's well-intentioned, but it's completely the opposite of what women were telling me they needed. I needed to be heard. I just needed to be heard. I needed to feel safe. I needed to feel like I wasn't going through this alone. And I think this is typical. And when I talk about sex and intimacy, and when I talk about other areas of the relationship, men fall into typically grand gestures. It's all about the weekend away in Paris, where women are saying, what I just needed was a bit more help around the house, or I needed a bit more time to myself, or I needed a little bit more of understanding of what I was going through. And I think we see this mismatch of, right, I've got to fix it, let's go big. And she's saying, I just need you to be around a little bit more, or to show you care, or you listen. And the good news is for men, and this is the message of the book fundamentally, is that you don't have to do anything massive. You just need to do some basic things right. Because in my experience of speaking to lots and lots of people about this, it really is the small steps that get your relationship back on track.
Well, I do wonder, it's like is it the onus the onus has to be on women a little bit, I do feel, is because, as you say, men are kind of hardwired to, like you say, to be the fixer. You know, that's how they love you. That's how they protect you. Is they're there to fix the problem, fight the lion.
Yeah, show their value, right? Exactly, yeah.
So we as women also need to understand how men are hardwired to be. And then if you are not saying, if your husband or partner is coming to you and saying, tell me what to do, what do you need me to fix? Is there something I need to do? Blah, 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 blah. Instead of, we need to then be able to, as women, be able to say, actually, darling, you know, what I need is I just want a bit of time to myself, and be willing to explain what it is you're feeling, and know that maybe they won't fully understand. But I think if you know your partner well enough, I think you'll probably get one of their lives, like you say, run away, and it'll be too much for them, which maybe you need to go and go in a bit deeper to that relationship. Maybe there's more going on. Or is they will sit there and they will do their best to try and understand and have patience with them, because it is going to be a challenge for them to understand, because they're just not going to be going through the same thing.
It's a really, really important and crucial observation there. And it's something that I wrestled with when writing the book, because some women, when I first started posting that I was doing this, and I did a video, and one of them was, you know, one of the tips was ask your partner what you can do today to help. And again, well-intentioned, meant to come from the right place. I got a little bit of pushback. I don't have the mental capacity to tell him what to do. He should know what to do. I'm juggling everything. I can't tell him what I need. I don't know what I need. So I'm really conscious that I don't want to ever make a sort of sweeping statement of this is the right way to approach it, because everything depends on you as a couple and individuals. Say is, yes, I fundamentally agree with that pushback. Men need to step up and need to do more without being asked, and take on more responsibility. I mean, it's why I wrote the book. That I genuinely do believe that. On the flip side, I think we've also got to meet people where they are. If your partner is completely unaware of all of this that is going on, then you can either signpost him towards resources, start talking about it, help get him on side, or you can refuse to engage and expect him to do it by himself. And I don't want to be oversimplistic here, but I genuinely believe that we do have to meet people where they are. And that sometimes it is maybe making a big effort at the start, and then you can take more of a step back, because some people aren't going to just embrace this. Some partners aren't just going to embrace it. They're going to need a lot of signposting. And it's really tricky, because every single relationship is different. Every single woman's perimenopausal journey is completely different. Men say to me, well, what symptoms are going to be next? It's like, it doesn't work like that. Symptoms can turn up, disappear, intensity, frequency. There is nothing is set in stone here. And so you've got to buckle up and embrace it. But yes, you're fundamentally, it is a very astute observation, because there is no right way to handle it. It's based on your relationship and where the strengths are, and maybe when you shouldn't have that conversation. Do you know what? The middle section of the book is about communication. Yes, the book is about perimenopause, but it's actually about relationships and communication. I think this is where some real low-hanging fruit is. I talk about the good talk triangle, right? So at the top, you've got the man, making sure you're doing the basics of good conversations right, what to say, what not to say, how to actively listen. But then the other two ends of the triangle are timing and location. We never ever think about time of a conversation or location, but they're so important to give because we're not trying to fix everything in one chat. We're trying to have a conversation that moves us closer together so we can have another one that moves us closest together. So we talk in length of the book about basically stacking the odds in your favor of a good conversation, because it takes all the pressure off. If you've got lots of time, you're on a lovely walk outside or a long car journey, you can dip in and out of the conversation while you're looking around. You're going to have a better outcome than if you're sitting face to face across the kitchen table at 10 o'clock at night after a long day. Right, we've got to fix it. It's not going to work. So this is where I think the low-hanging fruit is for a lot of guys in terms of just making everything slightly easier to get the result you want.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I think, like you say, I think you're in a relationship, it is not about just one person. It's not just about you. It's about the whole relationship, the both of you together. And, obviously if you've got children, then it can be more of a challenge to have that time. But I think it is about sort of being patient with one another. Like you say, I think you're spot on there, finding the right time. Because obviously if your partner's come home from work and you've had a bad day as well, and that is not a great time because you're both tired, you're going to snap at each other. But like you say, going and finding that space to go out, quiet time, whether it's like say a walk, go and have a cup of coffee, whatever it may be. Somewhere that's quiet, calming, a relaxing environment, and you can just sit and just have a nice, calm discussion.
But I think that's where so many men, again, it's that the right intention, but terrible execution. So to play on that example, maybe your partner comes home from work and your face like thunder. So you're like, well, what's wrong? What's up with you? Because you're asking, but you're asking in completely the wrong way. Oh, I'm fine. And like, you clearly not fine. Where instead, again, just off the top of my head, wow, you look like you've had a really tough day. Go and have half an hour. I'll get the kids through the bath. I've got dinner underway. Just showing her that she can go off and she's got time. She's got space. I'm here when you want to have a chat later. Let's have a chat. I've got a glass of wine or whatever it might be, but just go and relax. You clearly, and I know it sounds overly simplistic, Julia, but this is where I think we're faced so many times every single day as male partners with these 50-50 moments where we can either make something better or we can make something worse. I know a recent example recently where my partner had a work trip and was very, very stressed about it. And I could have easily said to her, what are you stressed for? You've done this 100 times. Come on, pull yourself together. You'll be fine. Dismissing her fears, not understanding the context of why she might be feeling stressed about this. So instead we talk about it. Well, what are you worried about this time? Okay, well, what did you do last time a trip went well? Let's do that. How can I free up some time? Again, overly simplistic, but we have these 50-50 moments where we come closer together or further apart. We don't need to be perfect every time, but we just need to be conscious that these moments exist, and then we can make a more informed decision.
I mean, does this come down to sort of in relationships, particularly if you've been with someone for some length of time? I'm not talking about a year or two, but many years. In the beginning, you talk about everything, don't you? And everything's wonderful. You're having a great time. When you've been with someone a long time, I don't like to say take someone for granted, but you just pay less attention. And it's the small things that you're not noticing because they're always there. It's just who they are, or they'll be all right in the end kind of thing.
Yes.
But this is something completely different because there's changes going on in someone that they're just not in control of.
Absolutely that. I think we are all guilty of taking our partners for granted because they're always there. They're always present. There's other things that are going on. As you say, kids are the big one, but it might be elderly parents. As I said, typically work is busier at this time of life and busier for everyone. And that's where those small cracks emerge. And then when that disconnect between not understanding what perimenopause is, maybe she doesn't even really understand what it is. And I think also it's really hard to ask for help when you're in a long-term relationship. I know that sounds nuts, but I think sometimes the asking for help, it can spiral into a conversation over who's done more recently or why are you tired? I've been sleeping worse than you, or you have to explain why you need help or you have to justify why you need help. Mm-hmm. And so you don't ask for anything and you just carry on suffering in silence. And in the book, a really quick example where we do the morning jump start, where a man can say to his partner, how are you doing today? What's your battery at? Because I think a common misconception is couples think we both need to be operating at 100% to get through the day. But you don't. You just need 100% between you because you're a team. And that's where a partner can say, I'm at 25% today. Fine. I know that I need to find 75%. So we get to 100 together. And it's such a friction-free way of saying, I need help today without asking for help, without justifying it, explaining it. It's spiraling into a conversation over domestic duties. My partner said, I've got 25%. I need you to step up. Okay, I will step up because I love you and I want to support you. And again, overly simplistic, but we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just trying to remove friction from our day and from our relationship. It's, relationships aren't 50-50. I think we need to move away from that. fundamentally accepting that some days are going to be harder for your partner because of everything that's going on, let alone perimenopause, means you're on the same team. Instead of saying, I really need help today, Joe. Can you do this, this, and this? I just need a bit of help. Fine, I'll pick up the slack. But we're instantly back on the same page as a team, tackling the day together. And the book is littered with little examples and little things like that you can do with your partner, because it's really important to remind yourselves that you are on the same team. I think in midlife, we're just butting heads the whole time. We're not in a relationship. We're co-directors of a logistics company. Who needs to do the shopping? Who needs to drop off the kids? Like, we forget that the reason that we got together in the first place was because we want to spend the rest of our lives together. So I think reminding each other that is absolutely invaluable, even though it sounds, unbelievably simplistic.
And that's the sort of thing I want to say when you talk about, because there are so many different types of couples out there. And so as a woman, for majority of women who are going to go through this menopause, it's the main part of it is you're going to be into your late 40s, early 50s when this all starts to begin. And many of the people will have been maybe in their second relationship, third relationship, whatever it may be. They may be married, they may not be. And if you've been the sort of person, very often now as well, both people are working or they have their businesses, which is another layer you've got to add on top of that, particularly in an environment like things are now, very challenging financially for many people, lots of stress, lots of pressure. Both of you may be having that as well. And if you're also the sort of woman who is used to doing everything by herself and looking after herself, and then you've got this guy that comes into your life and you've been together some years, and now you're experiencing that, going through this menopause. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, I guess, the guy wanting to help you and do stuff, but you're used to handling everything. So you're not actually, it's your default is not to need help or ask for help because you normally handle everything. And I can do everything better by myself anyway. And then that makes you more isolated. I hope I'm not backtracking too much, but I just wanted to get that point out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's obviously so many different potential dynamics at play. I think a lot of people who are successful in life and professional capacity, we are sometimes bad at asking for help. I think because you are used to doing it yourself, you might have standards you want to do. And this applies to around the house as well. But that's where, again, everything is coming back to communication, because you can do it all by yourself and burn out and the relationship burn out as well. Or you can talk honestly about where you're struggling or where you might need help. And I'll give one really quick example from the book as well. It's called The Relationship MOT. And I put this in the book as a way for women to explain to their partner how they were really doing without having to talk about it. So very simply, there's about 15 or 20 different sort of statements to do with stress, resilience, how your body feels, mental and physical kind of check-ins, how connected you feel to your friends, how stressed you at work. They did that kind of vibe. And you basically go through it and score it from 0 to 10. 0, you're absolutely dying on your ass, but 10, you're flying high and absolutely smashing it. And like I said, I did that in the book, so the partner could fill it out, and then the husband or the male partner could look at it and go, oh wow, you're really struggling here, maybe that's something I can help with. But what I actually got couples to do was both partners to do it and then to sort of swap sheets. And what was really interesting is men were saying to me, it was so useful for me to actually check in with myself, because I can't support someone if I'm struggling, right? And it works both ways here. And I think that exercise is incredibly useful, for yourself, so you can go, I'm actually really struggling with work, or I'm really struggling with sleep, or whatever. Getting it onto paper makes it crystal clear, I think. But then it also gives you the opportunity as a couple to work out where you can support each other, whether or not that is sleep, stress management, exercise, nutrition, whatever it might be. Because what I wanted the book to do was sort of give you this almost cheat code. Because it's, as I said, it's really hard asking for help. It's really hard to have big conversation. Sometimes you need a gateway exercise or a little gateway game into having those conversations in a safe, free, non-judgmental way. But we're all dealing with, I'm walking around with 44 years of history of being me, right? I've got a certain way of doing things. I don't like asking for help. I don't like confrontation. But it's not about that in your relationship with the person you love, right? It's about being vulnerable. And I think men have a big issue with vulnerability. So in the book, I talk about availability. You don't have to be vulnerable. You got to be available. Do you want to be there for the people that need you, the people that love you? But fundamentally, I'm really conscious a lot of this sounds like I'm just glossing over the difficulties and here's another communication tip or here's another little game. But I think we just do need to realize that it's not grand gestures or massive statements that make the difference here. It's literally showing up. It's being supportive. It's not disappearing to the office or the golf course for hours on end because home life is difficult. It's fronting up and having those early conversations that are going to be hard, but you need to have them because all subsequent ones will become that much easier.
And also the other thing is that sort of that intimacy that you have with your partner, that you obviously in the very early stages of your relationship is very hot, very passionate. But naturally, when you've been in a relationship for a long time, that isn't the center of everything. It's part of your relationship, but it's not the center of everything, that sort of bond, that friendship, that, it's a different, the love and the intimacy changes as you've been with someone a long time, and certainly as you get older. But having on top of that, you then have the woman going through menopause, makes it much more challenging. So what have you found in your research and all your case studies there in your book has helped people bring back a certain level of intimacy that maybe can drift, and that as well can be quite challenging when one or both people aren't fulfilling those sort of needs in the relationship?
Yeah, this was the thing that women were very happy to talk about up front, but men would typically talk about the tail end of my conversation with them, because I think that's it in a nutshell. I think for sex and ego are so intertwined. So for instance, when sex disappears from a relationship, or certainly goes quiet for a little while, it's obviously devastating for both people in that relationship. But I think men, again, sweeping statement, not generalization, but because sex is the one thing typically that you got together around, right? It was effortless. It was amazing. You couldn't stop thinking about it. When something goes wrong, a lot of men, it's baby with the bathwater. Well, everything's wrong. If that's missing from the relationship, then the relationship is doomed. Or the other thing I heard an awful lot is, the man saying he kept trying to instigate and kept getting rebuffed. And that's damaging to his ego. Is she having an affair? Doesn't she love me anymore? Taking it all incredibly personally. And that's what I mean by ego. It's very difficult, I think, for a lot of men to separate themselves and their value when sex is happening in a relationship. There's two things you touch on there, Drew. I think the first thing is obviously men need to understand just how different a woman is going to feel in her body and sexually as well when perimenopause arrives. I mean, we talk about some of the symptoms in the book, and I think it's really difficult for men to understand some of them, but we need to accept that everything is changing, how everything feels changing, because that's the first step, I think, to reconnect. Accept sex is going to be different. I do something in the book called the traffic light list, and it's meant for just like general likes and dislikes. Both partners, sit down. You've got your green list. These are the things your partner does that you love, that make you feel valued, cherished, just everything about them that you adore. You've then got your amber list. These are the things that slightly grate you, but I might not be too big a deal. And then you've got your red list. These are the things that make you want to Google divorce lawyers, right? They're the things your partner does that makes you absolutely insane. And I put that in the communication section as a way, because as I said, we do change. It's really useful in a safe environment to say, really, really annoys me when you do that. Can you do that a little bit less? And what was interesting was most couples, I had no idea that annoyed you. I'm so sorry. Or I had no idea you loved it when I did that. I can do that all the time. I love doing it too. So it's a brilliant exercise to do just generally for the relationship, but it's especially useful when it comes to intimacy, because sex changes, because everything, around your body can change. By saying, I'd like to do more of this and maybe less of this, you're not having that conversation when you've just tried to instigate it and been rebuffed. You're doing it at a different time, out of the bedroom. You're being open, you're being honest, maybe a bit of humor about what you want to try, what you don't want to try. Because I think for so many men as well, sex is still about the home run. You're forgetting about first, second and third base. But the research is out there. A lot of women in perimenopause and postmenopause, what we would consider foreplay becomes far more important and far more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So it's very, very difficult, I think, for men to sort of take a step back and go, okay, well, the rules have completely changed here. We're going to have to look at this differently. But actually, what was really, really lovely was the couples I'd spoken to who had got through this period, almost to a man and a woman, were saying they were having better sex than they'd ever had, because they were forced to confront what wasn't working, forced to evaluate what was important to them and what they valued and what they wanted to try and what they didn't want to do. And then with that honesty, with that humor, you do start trying things again. And a lot of, I had one couple that said to me, it was like we're on permanent second honeymoon, because they're just, I think sex is all about honesty, isn't it? And openness and communicating. And we forget that because sometimes we're just going through the motions when we've been together a little while. There's obviously two issues there, the kind of the physical discomfort, which needs to be addressed first, obviously. But then there are ways of rebuilding that intimacy and doing it in a way that brings you closer together. And the one final thing I'll say on that is this will be incredibly obvious to a lot of people, but it still surprised a lot of the men I was speaking to, is when a man doesn't feel connected in their relationship, they quite often see sex as a shortcut to reconnecting. If we have sex, we'll feel connected again. But of course, from the woman's point of view, if there's no connection there, she doesn't want to have sex with you. So you might be in a relationship where both of you want sex, but he's trying to get connection through sex, but she will only have sex once the connection is reestablished. And you just get this block where they keep getting it wrong and they feel like the relationship's doomed, where they're just not sitting down and talking about what they actually want and the best way to get there. So again, I hope that's a message of hope that there will be a way through it. If both couples are still wanting that outcome, you just need to change the direction of travel.
Yeah. And what have you found? I mean, you touched on it there from the sort of intimacy side of things, but going through this whole process of research for your book as well, what did you find that when people are sort of taking all these things on board, not just from a sexual perspective, from a life perspective, how is it changed in terms of how they show, once they've got their positive results, how's it, what am I trying to say? I'm getting all tongue twisted. Is in the sense of how they show up every day and they perform every day, whether that's in their personal life or their professional life. Has there been a vast change in once they've gone through this process?
Yes, but also once they're in the process as well, because I think a lot of men and an awful lot of women, once this stage of life happens, it's a bit doom and gloom. And I think that doom and gloom comes from the general societal narrative around menopause. But I also think fundamentally, we are scared of uncertainty. That when we don't know what's happening and we don't know when the end will be and we don't know why it's happening or why things are showing up in a certain order, it's scary. And again, massively oversimplistic. But when I speak to men about this, I can almost sort of see their shoulders, their posture improve when I say that you don't have to do anything. You just need to stop making it worse at the moment. And that means listening more. You don't need to fix anything. You just need to show your partner that you are there, you're not going anywhere, and you believe her. And it's almost like, okay, the weight of the world's off my shoulders now. This is not a problem to be fixed. This is a journey we're going to go through together. And I think for women, when I spoke to them as well, that sense of not being alone, even though she might be talking to friends who are going through similar things, everyone's different because your relationship's different, your symptoms are different, all these other things, to stand by you and understands to the best of their ability what you're going through and isn't scared by that, is ready to step up and be around. That has tremendous knock-on effect because I've interviewed over the course of my career as a journalist some of the most successful athletes, business people. I mean, the whole gamut. But if someone's not happy in their home life, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how many medals you're winning, goals you're scoring, deals you're clinching. If you go home at the end of the day and your partner's unhappy, you're unhappy, what's the point of it all, essentially? So that fundamental shift from two people living in a house feeling completely alone to going, we're on the same team here and you're having these troubles and I might be having these issues as well. How do we get through it together? Because, for better or worse, sickness and in health, right? That's often the commitment you make. And I think it's not like a lightning bolt of realization. It's like, if we do this together, we're going to be okay. And it's just that sense of almost relief that we don't need to do anything magical. We don't need to rip up, every single thing we've ever done. We just need to talk a little bit more about how we're feeling. And that's going to be difficult, but we're going to stick at it. And suddenly you realize that I know a little bit more now. And confidence is so powerful, right? Once you know a little bit more, you can be a little bit more confident. You know what to anticipate, so it's not a shock. You're just spinning that sort of virtuous cycle of getting on top of things and understanding what's happening and why.
Yeah, and I think as well as a woman as well, it takes that pressure off you because as women we always have it. Oh well, if I'm not young and youthful like I was, is he going to leave me? Is he not going to understand me? Whereas if you're having these conversations, then you can start to get up every day, and particularly if you have to go to work or you've got a business to run and clients to face every day. It takes that extra pressure off. The relationship's safe. I don't need to worry about that because we're having this open conversation now, and we both understand each other and where we're coming from.
Absolutely. And the traffic light list I mentioned, one lady told me that she'd had that conversation with a partner and said, my green list is, I love it when you send me a text message in the middle of the day when I'm at work. I've got a busy day, just checking in, thinking about you. And her partner was like, I had no idea that made a difference. Literally sets an alarm on his phone at 11:59 and send a message, right? And it's almost automated for him. But she was saying, when I've got a tough day, that check-in from him, because I'm absent, but I'm in his thoughts. Obviously, it's not enough to make up for everything else that's going on. But again, we're just looking for ways of reducing a little bit of friction here, a little bit of unhappiness here. And if a text message from your partner just means you're going to get through the afternoon with a smile on your face and your shoulders relaxed rather than clenched up, it is such an easy win. And I think that's why the traffic light list and other tools in the book are so important because there is that low hanging fruit where you can make your partner's life better. You just don't know it because she's not told you, he's not told you yet. Because I think that's fundamentally what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Is just making the day 5% easier. We don't want a perfect day. We just want a little bit less stress, a little bit less friction.
Well, I think it goes back to what you were saying. It doesn't have to be the big gestures. Most of the time, what women want is something very simple, very basic. They just need to know that you understand and that you're there and they can rely on you. That's really, it's usually very, very, something very simple for most women.
And just being believed. I mean, that was the one thing I kept coming back to, which again, I think it is just that mismatch between that good intention and bad execution that a lot of us as men are guilty of. It's sometimes we do go to humor at the wrong time. We make a joke of brain fog, or, we have to understand as men that some women are suffering absolutely crippling anxiety and they don't know where it's come from, or they're looking in the mirror and they don't recognize themselves. One woman said, it's like my body was taken over by an alien. Nothing felt like me. And it's so easy to laugh about that because it feels an alien concept. I can't imagine what that's like.
It's almost like overnight. I mean, once in my early 40s, I kept it all together. When I hit my mid 40s, I wasn't in perimenopause at that point, but I noticed changes. But once I hit 50, it was like my body went off a cliff. I didn't know what happened. It was like I look in the mirror and think, what the hell has happened to me? And I'm laughing about it now. I can, but it's.
But at the time, I imagine that was incredibly frightening because it's that uncertainty.
It's just, you don't have any control over it. That's the thing. And I'm a health and fitness fanatic. And I had a great physique. Well, my belief is I had a great physique, and now all of a sudden I've hit 50. Where has this body come from? It's not mine.
That is something I think a lot of men will struggle to understand. But you don't have to truly understand it. You just have to believe what your partner is saying. We talk in the book as well about exercise and women, the importance of strength training, especially at this time of life, because to compensate for muscle mass, bone density loss, all these other things. Weight training is what keeps women out of a nursing home. And if we want to be independent, we want to be active, we want to be strong, the thought of I'm not training for the next 45 minutes, I'm training for the next 45 years is so important. Again, another example of that mismatch between what a man's trying to do and what actually helps is I had men saying to me, oh, if she needs to go weight training, I can take her down the gym, or we've got a set of dumbbells, I'll show her what to do. Again, right intention, but what the women were telling me was I just need time to go and I don't want to train with him. I see him all day, every day, or whatever it might be. My exercise time is my time. It's my headspace. So instead of him following me to the gym, what I need him to say is, right, I've got the kids, I'm walking the dog, I'm doing the big shop, whatever it is, you've got 3 hours, or whenever you want, take 3 hours and I'll pick up stuff around here. You go for a hike, go to the gym, go and lie down, go and stare at a dark wall, whatever it is you need to do, your time is important to me, and I've ring fenced it. And again, oversimplistic, but it's that, okay, well, I can fix it. I'll go to the gym with you. No. Do more around the house so she has the time to go to the gym without the guilt that a lot of midlife women have because there's jobs to do, that people need sandwiches, clothes need washing, all this stuff, right? This cliched stuff. But that's what women said. I need more time. I don't need him to help me. I just need more space and more time. And I think that's another area where low hanging fruit for men. Do more. Give her the time. Give her the permission to go off and do these things.
And also, as a man, you've got to remember that what your woman needs in the gym is not what she needed in her 20s and 30s. The way she needs to keep fit and work out and be healthy is changed dramatically because of the hormone changes, and the effects of that is already adding an extra layer to what she's going through as well. So and I think, like you say, it's a well-meant intention, but you are not qualified to take her and start training her because her body doesn't need what you're going to give her.
And we see this a lot, right, from young male influencers on social media who have quickly pivoted into perimenopausal trainers because, again, they know there's an awful lot of money there, right? There's a lot of women who will throw money at this because they're desperate. We see it around sports nutrition as well. Menopause formulation, it's exactly the same as a multivitamin. But another area where, your partner might say to you, my body is changing. But I'm doing everything the same. I'm still eating the same. I'm still exercising the same. Nothing has changed. But as we know, the redistribution of body fat around the tummy because of the estrogens, the low levels of estrogen. Women's bodies are changing and they're not doing anything differently. How estrogen impacts with your basic metabolic rate. And it's very easy for men to go, well, you must be eating more because you put on weight. I know calories in, calories out. Whatever it might be, it's that, oh, well, you must be eating more, or you must be doing less exercise, or whatever it is. Again, we're dismissing rather than going, actually, I've got no idea how estrogen affects almost every single cell of your body, and it can lead to body recomposition, and it can do X, Y, and Z. But that's where you need to believe her. If she's saying that, then okay, it's not your job to question it or to doubt it. It's to make her feel believed, and then enable her to have the time, to have the space, to have the the capacity, the guilt-free workout session or whatever else it might be, because we don't understand what's happening with women's bodies. A lot of women don't understand what's happening with women's bodies. We've got to be advocates.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as well on women, I said just now this is becoming such a topic that more people are talking about it, even before you get into your perimenopause and then menopause, is to actually take some time. I mean, young women today are in a position that women of my age never were, is that they're more aware of that this is going to happen. We're all going to go through it. No one's going to be free of going through it unless hundreds of years down the line they have some magic pill or injection they can give us. But everyone is going to go through it. Doing your research now, so you're prepared, and then you can sort of take proactive action when you're younger to get the right lifestyle choices, the right health and fitness, understand the changes your body goes through over the next few decades and how you can adapt to it. It doesn't mean you've got to let go of things you enjoy or stop having a glass of wine or two or anything like that. But you will need to understand, you can start planning and thinking about it, not in an intense way, but just making yourself more aware so that you can maybe, like you say, when it comes to your health and fitness, and I think from my perspective, because I was so fit and healthy, that has helped me manage my menopause. I think if you're not paying attention to your health and wellness, like I say, it just compounds the issues you're going to have. And I think as you're younger, you can start paying attention to it a little bit more. And young men as well can hear about it and understand it, which I think our generation probably didn't have that.
No, I couldn't agree more. We have to get this on everyone's radar. And I think my one concern about my book is people are going to come to it when they're absolutely at their lowest ebb, right? And that's such a shame, because if you can get ahead of this and you can understand and anticipate to some extent what's happening, it's going to make everything easier. And I think it's massively important for young women to be aware of this as well. Just as a general awareness, like you say, it's not panic stations, but it means that when you hit a certain age and weird things start cropping up or unusual things you can't explain, you might have an idea of what's happening. Because I spoke to so many women who spent 2, 3, 4 years going through chaos because they had no idea what was happening. They thought they had cancer. They were going to the doctor for blood tests. They thought they had early onset Alzheimer's. Like these are incredibly wasted years of worry and anxiety over something that could have been relatively easily addressed earlier on. And I think it's especially important for men. We look around statistics around women, 1 in 10 women leave the workforce because of the severity of their perimenopausal symptoms. That doesn't even include the women that don't go for promotions or don't seek another job because of crippling brain fog or sweats or whatever, one of the dozens of symptoms it might be. If I knew about this at 25, I would have probably been a much better colleague to the older women in the office who were going through this. That's where the awareness is. Yes, it's massively important as a man for your partner, but you're surrounded by women who are having an incredibly tough time. And going into an office and seeing someone as a person, not just a professional, seeing them as someone who might be having difficulty, their performance might have dropped off because they're absolutely struggling with fatigue or with anxiety or with anything else, and treating people as people rather than just someone you work with. Prevention is always better than cure. And I think the more we can understand about this entire perimenopausal journey, from symptoms to what you can do about it, we're going to make everyone's life easier, because there are still far too many people going through this absolute despair at what's happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it's never ever going to be easy, but we can make it easier.
Yeah. And again, it's just a thought came to my mind that although most women who go through all of this are in their midlife or starting on their midlife, there are some rare cases where, women, like they say, they become ill, they may have a hysterectomy or something else happens, and they are thrust straight into that menopause very early on, even though there's been cases of young women who've started menopause early, 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. And just not understanding. I mean, who would understand at that age that that's what they're going through? I mean, they are rare. It doesn't happen very often, but there are cases of that happening. So I think always being aware, and if you do feel like something is off and something's not right, do go and get yourself checked and have your tests done.
The whole of chapter 8 in the book is called Dealing with the Doctor, because so many women are still being medically gaslit.
Mm.
That you've got 10 minutes for an appointment. I think what the travesty of a lot of the stuff around healthcare is we're expecting women to go in and in 10 minutes advocate for themselves at their possible lowest ebb. They're at the doctor because they can't focus, they can't sleep, they can't do X, Y, and Z. They feel like their life's falling apart. And because menopause isn't a mandatory part of medical school training in a lot of UK institutions, they're getting dismissed. We've got an old-fashioned bingo card in the book. Brush off bingo. If you hear more than 2 of these from your GP, go and get a second opinion. You're too tired. You're going out too much. You're not going out enough. You need a holiday. You're going on too many. All these kind of things that women genuinely told me they were being heard. And this is a massive thing that men can step up at and go to the appointments, or at least help your partner prepare for the appointments. A list of your symptoms. What are the treatment options? What are the next steps? And there's even research that a male partner in appointments with a woman, the doctor treats them differently. They get put on a treatment pathway quicker, which is absolutely insane and borderline criminal. That's what's happening. But like I said earlier, we've got to meet people where they are. If your partner is going to get a bit better, quicker resolution by you being there, so long as it's all right with her, go along to the appointment, take notes. You can prompt her if she's forgotten anything. Because, the NHS is massively up against it. We do need to help ourselves here. But there are still outrageous stats on the number of months, number of years that some women need to go through the medical process before they're even offered HRT, where nice guidelines, it should be the first intervention. That should be your first option when you're presenting these symptoms. So there's an awful lot of work to do. But we're expecting women to do it by themselves when they're least capable of doing it or least confident of doing it. So that's the whole of chapter 8. And someone for the book who had a medical menopause and was sent home, no hormones, no treatment plan, nothing. And, this might be an isolated incident, but it doesn't matter. It's happened once, so it can happen again. This is a huge area where men have an awful lot more power than I think, than they think, sorry.
Yeah. When it came to this book, I mean, did you have, particularly when obviously it comes to men, because like you say, women, we're more open about talking it, and when we've got someone to talk to about it, we'll go hell for leather. But have you found with men, did you get much pushback from men about doing this? Have you come across any barriers when it came to, were men actually kind of grateful to have this something that they can, like a guidebook for them?
Yeah, the overwhelming response has been unbelievably supportive. And I know you'd expect the author of a new book to say that, but genuinely, as soon as the book went up on Amazon, which happened probably 4 or 5 months before publication, because that's just what you have to do, I was actually getting emails and DMs from someone saying, "Have you got any early chapters you can send me? Because I'm not spoken to my partner for 2 months. We're living separate lives. I don't know what to do. I've tried to research. I've tried to do X, Y, and Z. Nothing is working. What should I do? I'm worried about my relationship." It's absolutely heartbreaking, because these are just the people that spoke out. There would be an awful lot of people that didn't. So the response has been, sort of love across the board, actually, from men and women, like, about time, because this is something women go through, but they're going through it alone and they shouldn't. I think the other lovely bit of feedback I've had is, and this was always my private hope, that women read the book too, because women's books are absolutely brilliant on this, but they are quite clinical, they are quite medical, and rightly so. They need to be. Burning Up, Frozen Out to be almost like a choose your own adventure, because we're not telling you this is what you should do or this is how you should do it, because everyone's different and your journey is different. We're basically just presenting the latest and best information, and then you pick what is relevant to you, to your relationship, to your situation. So it's been lovely hearing from women that have read it, said, I'm getting a really different perspective on this. It's interesting seeing it from a man's point of view. I'm not going to lie. There've been a few comments from, and I won't go into the type of man. We all know what type of man it's going to be. Or what about men? What about TRT? That typical kind of response. But I mean, we know they're just doing it for attention and for nothing else. I think men have had far too much of the spotlight for far too long. And it's definitely our turn to step up and pay some of that back. And I think knowing that men and women are reading it together, one couple even said, we're literally just reading it together and then putting it down and using it as a jumping off point for a conversation about whatever it might be. I mean, that was always the goal, because conversations are hard in midlife. So, if we can facilitate them, make them slightly easier, that's obviously music to my ears.
But the thing is, you start a conversation around something like this, which is quite a challenging discussion to have. It's not an easy discussion to have, but then it can, the way I see it, can, like I say, when you've been in a relationship a long time, you do lose that ability to talk about anything and everything, and you become a bit, not apathetic, like I say, but it can open up this this new relationship in terms of, because communication is the thing, the glue that holds things together ultimately, in my personal opinion. Having that and you can talk about anything then. And life suddenly
Yeah.
becomes much more interesting and exciting rather than just, how was your day, dear? Oh, it was okay.
Because we go through the motions, right? We do. And that's just because modern life is incredibly difficult. It wears us down. I think we are talking about this more for lots and lots of reasons, but most of our jobs are almost 24/7 now. Emails are pinging constantly. We're working on Zoom around the world and speaking to different people, all amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
But it's not like our parents' generation where if you worked in an office that your job ended at 5 o'clock on a Friday and you didn't do anything until 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. Like, you have these clearly delineated work, life, everything else. Now it's all just jumbled up. And I think we only need to look at, with kids, we're doing more with our kids than we were done when we were children as well. Everyone's pulling at us. Everyone wants something from us. And we feel like we can't stop, like sharks. We can't stop swimming. We've got to keep doing it the way we are. But fundamentally, at some point, you are going to burn out, especially if you don't have that strong, stable relationship with your partner. And it's heartbreaking to see some of the statistics around midlife divorce, because I think for a lot of men, some of them I spoke to was like, I just didn't see it coming, Joe. And it's like, well, how can you not see it coming? But because you're so just head down, just trying to get through each day, trying to get to the weekend, that these miscommunications, these disconnects grow and grow and grow. And then one day they're just too far to bridge.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd really like men to read this book before they're at that point, right? While there's still an awful lot they can do to reconnect, to, not only to make themselves healthy and happier, but to make their partner healthy and happier. Because if you're both thriving, like, anything is possible.
It's like a huge wake up call to people. Pay attention now. Don't wait, because it's like any trauma in life. We always wait till, like you said earlier, about wait for something, you to be hit by a truck before you do anything about how you walk down the street. Pay attention now. I'm always a great advocate for taking proactive, preventative measures in anything in life.
Well, it's like the ostrich what I talked about at the start. Typically for a lot of people, not just men, for a lot of us, if you're slightly overwhelmed, there's too much going on, you back down, you just shut down because there's too much to deal with. And I think we all know that is not a long-term strategy. But my message of hope from the book is there is so much you can do, and none of it is scary. It's hard, but it's not scary. It's not something you can't do. It's not something you've not done before. Yeah. You just need better tools. You just need sharper tools to navigate some of these early, difficult, 50-50 moments. You nudge the needle, you get those moments right, and suddenly you'll realize that you are talking more. You're going out, you're dedicating time to go for a walk once a week rather than trying to force a conversation over the dinner table. You're giving yourselves the opportunity, the chance to have better conversations. Yeah. And if you do that, you will be amazed at how quickly, because ultimately, if you both want to be healthier and happier together, you've got the same goal. You just need to make sure you're standing side by side to get there.
And it works out better, not just for the couple, but for the greater family, for your work, for everything going forward. So the future is looking bright, Joe.
And I think that was the lovely thing, speaking to couples who had been through it, as I said, they were happier than ever because there was an elephant in the room and they were forced to address it. They were forced to be honest with each other, make some changes because, we are changing all the time. Changing together is obviously a much better option. And it's hard. I'm not trying to dismiss any of it. And I'm at the start of this journey as well. And I'm learning all the time and I'm making mistakes. I said to my partner the other day, calm down. Literally in the book, I've got a subtitle, never ever say calm down, but we do it because it's the, absolutely the one guaranteed way to make someone furious is to tell them to calm down. We know it. I know it. I've written about it in the book, but we still fall into these traps. And it's not about being perfect, but it's about owning it when you make a mistake. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I said that. I didn't mean it. Let's reset. Or this isn't a great time for a conversation. I really want to talk about it, but let's maybe pick it up later. We're not trying to suddenly become the master negotiator, the master communicator. We're just trying to make difficult conversations a little bit easier. And sometimes that might just be the time and the location. I mean, it really is that simple, but it all starts with a willingness. If you're not willing to embrace it, you're not willing to face up to some of these difficult conversations and keep your head in the sand, then unfortunately it's not going to end very well.
So Joe, if you could say one thing out of all of this, if you wanted someone who was listening today could come away with one thing that you would want them to take away from this and start working on, what would it be?
You have so much more power than you think in terms of not only perimenopause, but every single facet of your life. I think we're really, really overwhelmed at the moment. And it feels as though it's very, very difficult to, we're just basically trying to paddle and keep our head above water. But I think with perimenopause, with anything in life, if you're uncertain of it, it's scary and you shut down. Whereas if you know a little bit and you understand what's going on, then maybe you can do more. And I think the final section of the book is called Power. It's about stress management, sleep, exercise, nutrition, and intimacy and sex. And these are areas of your life where you do have far more control than you think. And it's not about trying to fix everything at once. It's about focusing on one of those lifestyle pillars that you want to address. Because if you make some progress there, you'll get the confidence then maybe to change another part of your life. In my 20 odd years as a health and fitness journalist, no one has ever got healthier and happier by changing everything at once. It starts with one pillar. So pick your pillar, whether or not it's stress, sleep, exercise, nutrition, and work on that. Do some simple, sustainable things that just get the ball rolling, because that vicious cycle can very quickly become a virtuous one once you get it turning. And confidence is an incredibly powerful motivator. You've got to want it, but you've also got to put a little bit of work in. But once you do and that wheel starts turning, you'll be amazed at how quickly everything else falls into place.
Yeah. And look, Joe, this has been an amazing conversation. Now, your book is very well researched. You know what you're talking about. So if people want to find your book, where can they go?
They can get it from all good and all bad bookshops. It's everywhere. So Amazon is probably one of the easiest places to get. If you're sitting on the fence about whether or not this is the book for you as a man, do go to my website. It's burningupfrozenout.com, because you can download chapter 4 for free. Chapter 4 is called Men Mojo in the Midlife Crisis, and it looks a little bit about what's going on with men in midlife to help set the scene, so you understand more of what your partner's going through. But I think that's a really good, useful place to start, because you might be feeling lost and you might want to support your partner. But as I said, you can't support someone if your ground is unstable. So for a lot of men, that might be a really useful place to start. But you can find me on social media, on Instagram at Joe Warning UK. And I've got tons of advice. I could talk about, Julia, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I could talk about this all day, because I've spoken to so many couples who are really, really unhappy. And I think there is far more within their grasp than they realize. So I'm going to keep banging this drum about how powerful you are. You just need to know what the rules are, what the game is, and then you can make your play.
Yeah, you can. And honestly, it is well worth it. And you must keep banging the drum, because the more people who are aware and have that knowledge, the better it is. You also have a Substack as well, don't you? So if anyone, Substack is like where a lot of media people, and I've got a Substack as well, not that I'm a media person, but you can get some really great information and articles on there from you as well.
Yeah, I try and do. I've got to be honest. I've not been doing one a week at the moment, just because I've been promoting the book. But yeah, I write about men and midlife and menopause there, free articles and videos as well. Instagram's probably the best place just to get stuff, because that's why I'm posting links there the whole time. You know, if you were sitting, again, like I said, sitting on the fence about the book, it's not just about hormones. It's about communication. It's about relationship. It's about you and how you can regain control of your life. Because I think a lot of us are feeling a little bit lost. So I wanted to put a message of hope out there that, you know, it's up to you. You can turn it around, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for giving us this inspiration and this encouragement and this motivation now, and knowing that there is a solution there for all you couples who are struggling out there. So thank you, Joe, so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time today. And thank you everyone for tuning in to the show. And we'll see you here next time on Unleash Your Inner Athlete.